Today we're going to be talking about the Wii U.
Ah! Good God! It's hideous.
Hey, Station X here. What we're going to be doing is talking about just a little bit of a Nintendo history real quick before we get right into the main guy right here. So, if you look at a timeline of every single Nintendo home console, so all 7 of them, you go from the NES. So the NES was the thing, the NES and Famicom was the thing that made Nintendo's name in the video game market. Then you have the Super Nintendo and Super Famicom that solidified it. Then we go to N64. Now, while there was some questionable decisions made with the N64, one thing that it did well was that it had extremely good games, like instant classics almost all the time, specifically from Nintendo themselves. That's the most important part. And then GameCube, while continuing that trend of questionable decision making and possibly even worse sales than the N64, it had some of the best games, in my opinion, from Nintendo. I mean, like, you look at every single series, the Mario series, Zelda series, Metroid, Mario Kart, Mario sports titles, Mario Party, like F-Zero, all of them, literally all of them. You can say that the best, I would say the best games in those series were on the GameCube. I mean, do I have to say Melee? I mean, do I have to? But then we move on to the Wii. And then the Wii, while lots of hardcore fans kind of poopy on it now, it's like not like, oh, it was overrated. The casual market really helped Nintendo out with that. And I mean, of course, it still had amazing games like Galaxy and Twilight Princess and stuff like that for Zelda. And so, and I mean, Wii Sports, I mean that's just a no-brainer right there. But the Wii was like their most successful console on the face of the planet, despite the shovelware. It was the most successful for Nintendo. So, and we even if we go to the modern console that they have, the current one right now, the Switch, the Nintendo Switch, while it has it's not the most powerful console, which that's a theme with Nintendo systems, is that they are not the most powerful compared to their competitors. They are very underpowered compared to those guys, but they usually can deliver on these two things: unique gaming experiences and a really good lineup of first-party titles. These two things they do very, very well. Now, you notice there I skipped this guy right here. Well, that's because this guy he's like one of these things are not like the other. He did not do good at all. The Wii U, I'm gonna stop referring to it as a person, but the Wii U did not do well at the slightest. Okay, when I say this thing did bad, it did bad in almost every single thing it tried to do. As far as unique gameplay experiences, you notice I haven't shown the tablet yet, which I mean, this thing right here is, I think, one of the main issues with the Wii is that the marketing showed this tablet all the time and barely this console. And when it did, I know I have these stands on it, but when it did, it showed it laying down like this, and you only saw it from like this point of view right here. So you almost never saw this thing, and if you did, you saw it. You probably assumed it was probably the Wii, if you, depending on who you are. I know my parents for the longest time assumed that this thing was just an accessory to the Wii, and you can argue that this thing really is just a Wii Pro. I mean, some can argue that because it plays all the Wii stuff. And you can also just add as a very small selection of Wii U titles that were exclusive to it. But obviously this was trying to be its own system. This was supposed to be the next Nintendo system. The marketing really didn't portray this thing as the next system. The name really didn't help, and the way that they presented it didn't help. A lot of people, see, the Wii has this bad thing with it that, like, all the accessories and, like, some of the titles and stuff like that share the Wii name because the name was so popular. So with this just being Wii U and Nintendo not doing a very good job explaining what this is, what do you think is gonna happen? This was really just referred to as just the Wii accessory, or I always say it's the Wii Pro. I mean, that's always what I tell my friends, is that this is a Wii Pro. But regardless of that, while it doesn't have a really good start, well, what about the games? The games is what really is the matter. Well, this thing has the smallest library in not only Nintendo's home console history, I think this has like the second smallest library out of any console that was mainstream to the public. Less than all the PlayStation ones, less than all the Xbox systems, less than pretty much all the Sega systems with the exception of one, and that was the Master System. And the Sega Master System had at least 128. This thing had 166.
Mamma mia!
So, I mean, the lack of games here, there's just nothing really to play. The good games that were third parties, mind you, were all available on other places, and the Wii U versions were arguably the worst versions. Not to mention that because this thing was low powered, this thing was just slightly better, more as far as like power wise, compared to the 360. That's not good. Like, we've had a whole generation of the 360, and the fact that this thing barely did better than that, and this is supposed to be a next gen system, it means like we got stuff like Black Ops 2 and Call of Duty Ghosts that like played on the 360 very well, but then on here it was like, ooh, bad. You have Assassin's Creed 4 that was like played. It was the worst version on the Wii U, and even 3 was worse on the Wii U. There was Mass Effect. Mass Effect 3 was another one that had a Wii U port, and it just didn't look that great, in my opinion, compared to the only third-party one I guess was fine was Just Dance. Just Dance is Just Dance. Now, then, the first-party titles, usually, that's if you could count on Nintendo for anything, the first-party games is what you buy a Nintendo system for most of the time. And that's why people become Nintendo fans, is because of the Nintendo games. The people who make the system obviously can make the best games on it. And while that is technically true in the Wii U sense, if you compare it to everything else, they're bad. Most of the Wii U first-party Nintendo games are either they're good, which is a very small selection of that. They're okay. They're just either boring or just not flashy at all. They're just kind of like safe, generic, or they're bad. They're just really, really bad. So the really bad category being like Amiibo Festival, Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. There's just no mainline Animal Crossing on there other than Amiibo Festival. Then you have the Star Fox Zero and Guard. I'm gonna combine both of them. I don't care. Like, those was straight up, like, that game was straight up unplayable. And that leads into another thing, a little side tangent, is that a lot of the games did not use the tablet very well. And when they did try to be unique about it, when they were trying to integrate this thing into the gameplay, 9 times out of 10, in fact, I can only name one game that did this well, but every time they tried to shoehorn this thing in, it was just bad. And specifically in Star Fox's case, it made it unplayable. Lego City Undercover literally is the only game that I could think of off the top of my head that used this thing well. Other than that, most third-party games said, you know what, let's just use this as a map or an inventory system, and that's it. Well, I guess Mario Maker is another one that used this thing really well. I really like using the tablet for Mario Maker, so I mean, that's another neat little addition. But that's still bad. Like, if only 1 or 2 out of like the 100 games that you have don't really, like, the only 2 that look good with this thing, it's just like, what's the point of this tablet? Honestly, like, the games really were the most important thing of the Wii U's success or failure, and because of the fact that they were just very few, if any, good games on this system, it really didn't help it. You kind of need 3 things for a console to do very well, and that's good marketing, feeds into people buying it, which means good third-party support, and then from there you also have your first-party support to really like boost the system up. Your first party, if say your marketing's kind of bad, but people buy because of your first party things, then the sales will still go up no matter what, and then you'll have your third party support there. Really, if your marketing's bad, but your first party, like that, that's the thing. Nintendo always delivered with the first party stuff. Every time when people buy more than one system, usually you'll hear, oh, I'll buy the new PlayStation, or I'll buy the new Xbox, and then I'll buy whatever Nintendo's doing. You know, and that's because Nintendo had games that were only on Nintendo, and there was not only a lot of games that were only on Nintendo, but they were really good. Wind Waker, Mario Sunshine, Mario Galaxy, Mario Kart, Mario Party, Star Fox, F-Zero back when they were still making them, Kirby, Metroid, I can go on. And those games helped Nintendo systems sell even when they were not doing that great. Nintendo systems that didn't sell very well still had a good reputation just because of the fact that the games were just so good. This thing didn't have that. So with all three things failing, no wonder why this thing never did well. Okay? The Wii U simply just had nothing going for it from the beginning, middle, and ironically, towards the end. Because towards the end, when Nintendo Switch came out, they were working on it. Let me backtrack a bit. When they were working on it, they were also working on doing stuff for mobile, because this was like just a really bad time for Nintendo. They were not doing very well in sales. And on top of that, they were working on the 3DS a bit, because the 3DS was at least doing better than the Wii U, so Wii U titles were suffering because of the fact the company was spread real thin. So, what you have here is simply just the fact that that was 2015-16 going into the Switch's release was just the worst time to be a fan of the Wii U if you were sticking it out. It was just not good. Ironically, one of the last Nintendo first party releases they did, Breath of the Wild, which was a good game, and was originally meant for the Wii U. You know, it's funny, they don't even use this tablet. Like, it just says tap the screen to switch to the tablet. So essentially like the Switch, where it's like you could play it like this, portably, whatever. But even then, this thing couldn't go far from the console. It has to be within the vicinity of this, otherwise you ain't going anywhere with this. And that, I guess, is the only other thing I would say it did well, is that, like, say if you're a kid and your parents want to watch TV and you still want to play your game, you could at least play most games, because not all of them will work because of the fact they use the tablet. But, you know, if they don't really use the tablet that much, a lot of the times they'll have the option to play the game on the tablet. And split screen worked well too, because of the fact that you can have the separate screen on the tablet and on the TV. So those are the only two things I thought was really good with it. And I guess, you know, while this was a hindrance to the Wii U, the backwards compatibility of this thing is great, just like how the Wii's backwards compatibility was great. All the accessories for the Wii and all its games can be played, and now in HD. So Wii was the only console that generation, the 7th generation, to not have HDMI support. So this, allowing it to be played in HD, makes certain games like Galaxy and Twilight Princess really, really pretty looking. So, in conclusion, like with the start of the Switch coming out, and over the years as we go further and further into the Switch life, nowadays there still isn't a reason to buy the Wii U really anymore, just because of the fact that 90% of the Switch library either has a port on the Switch, the Wii U library has either a port on the Switch, a HD remaster, or a sequel that makes the original version not count. There was about 3 games that I thought were really nice on the Wii U, and it was the only reason why I would play on the Wii U, and that's Splatoon, Mario Maker 2, and Smash Brothers. Splatoon got obsolete real quick because Splatoon 2 came on the Switch. It was one of the launch titles. Then you had Smash Brothers had Smash Ultimate, which, I mean, in my opinion, kind of makes all the Smash Brothers games obsolete. But I know Melee people will still like Melee. And then Mario Maker was one of the last ones, the last reasons to play on the Wii U. And then finally, they made a Mario Maker 2. So there was just no reason to play on it. This thing was a paperweight. Unless you played Wii games on it and you just didn't have your Wii anymore. You know? And so that could, the only two reasons, and they're not the best reasons, but the only two reasons why you would play this is if you wanted to play your Wii games in HD, or you're just a collector like me and likes to waste money. So the problem with the Wii U's whole life is that there was just never an incentive to buy a Wii U. It was just always overlooked, overshadowed, and was just never supported. It was never really supported all the way, never really given a chance, and it was never given good opportunities to show it what it can do. Because there could have been really good experiences on this thing. I always give consoles benefit of the doubt of why, because it's hard to make a good system. It's very hard. There's not a whole lot of them out there. But there's always something good, even with a failing console. There's always something to go back to that makes you excited about it. But this, I can't think of any reason. Unless you just don't have the Switch and they're never planning on getting one, then yeah, I guess some of the games are appealing to you now. But arguably, not only the Switch started off as the same price as the Wii U being $300 and Switch being $300. The fact that it's portable, you can take it anywhere, where you can't really do that with this unless you bring this thing with you. And just the simple fact that all the Wii U games are essentially on the Switch anyway, there's just no point. There's just no point in buying a Wii U logistically nowadays. It's just the only reason why would just essentially just be if you're a Nintendo fan. And that's it. And even then, that's kind of a hard sell. But, I mean, if we're going to end it on a positive note, the Wii U, at least if it didn't happen, we wouldn't have gotten the Switch. So, I'm at least happy we had to get to this to get to the Nintendo Switch. So, that'll be it for today. My name is Station X, and I hope you have a good day.